Fasting has been done for centuries all through Europe and has been well known to be a trigger to bring about healing processes in the body. So what I'd like to look at in this presentation is fasting, what it is and the effect that it has on the body. And research is coming out today that is revealing that fasting is doing far more than most people thought. So I'd like to have a look at the different types of fasting. But first of all, what is fasting? Fasting basically, in the dictionary says, absence of food. Now, food is eaten to give nourishment to every cell in our body. So what happens when we don't fast? Now, as I showed you yesterday, when we went inside the cell, here is the cell, and we have the pathways. We looked at the 20-step pathway, and this 20-step pathway gives us 2 units of energy. This is where glucose goes down. The end result of the 20-step pathway is a chemical form of glucose called pyruvate. Pyruvate is the chemical form of glucose that gets fed into the 8-step pathway, and this 8-step pathway delivers to us 36 units of energy because of the presence of oxygen, whereas this pathway, no oxygen. So this is your glycolytic pathway, and this is the mitochondria Krebs cycle pathway. We also looked at the fact that the body also stores glucose like little molecules, just like a little bunch of grapes really. Looks like a little bunch of grapes, but they're little molecules of glucose sitting in the muscle cell particularly, ready to be plucked when no food's coming in. And we also looked at the third place that the liver sends glucose when we eat is as the fat cells. And the fact is that we can go periods of time without eating because we've got these backups. We've got our glycogen stores already in our muscle cell. We've got our fat stores. So we can go periods without eating because there are stores in the background. So what happens when you fast? Well, one type of fasting is absence of food for a period of time. And we look in the Bible, when Israel was being challenged, often the king would go through a period of fasting and he'd get all the people of Israel together and they would fast and pray, asking God to intervene because the enemy was too big and too great. And there are some amazing stories of how God did that. But often fasting was chosen. You see, 1,200 calories is required to digest a meal. So when you're not digesting a meal, all that blood and energy is going to other areas. And because the brain is headquarters, capital city of the human body, when you need to do some intense thinking, and I guess when Israel was in trouble and they were praying and pleading with God for wisdom, for intervention, then all their body's energies, the body's energies that usually go with digestion were able to go to brain function, help clear mind. You see, when they weren't eating, the body started plucking the glycogen stores and started eating up the fat stores. So fasting has been used for that, but fasting has also been used as a way of healing the body from certain diseases. You see, when you're not digesting, and your brain's not going into intense brain function, the body basically says, wow, this is great. We've got a little bit of extra energy here. We can go to the areas of greatest need. You see, the body knows what to do. It knows how to heal you. God put that amazing process inside the body. And when you're fasting, the body basically says, great, we've got a little bit of extra help now. We can go to those areas of greatest need. And as I often tell our guests at our health retreat, in every single body, the energies are going to a different area. It all depends on the greatest need. But before rest and rejuvenation can happen, the first thing the body has to do is clean house. And we have 4 organs of elimination we looked at earlier in this series of lectures. We've got our skin, which throws off waste. We've got our urine that's throwing off waste, we've got our lungs that are also throwing off waste, and we've got our colon, which is eliminating the largest pieces of waste. So all the waste is coming out of the body, but there are some areas of waste that are fairly toxic. And the liver, being the project manager, the liver is the one that detoxifies us, or basically is in charge of the detoxification process. And your liver detoxifies you in 3 ways. So number 1 requirement is to stop eating. And when you stop eating, the fat stores start to get broken down to give the necessary glucose for your cells to run. But all through our life, when we're confronted with or take in by mouth, by skin, environmental poisons, they always go to the liver. The liver's the project manager. And sometimes these environmental poisons come to the liver, and the liver says, this is a nasty, nasty guy. Wrap him up in fat and store him. So in our fat cells, we've got these environmental poisons stored up. And then the person comes to the health retreat and they stop eating, and the fat stores are getting broken down to give the glucose that our cells need to run on, and something else a little bit more sinister is being released. It's the fat-soluble toxins. And these fat-soluble toxins that have been building up in our fat cells all our life. And what the liver does, it must break that down to a water-soluble state. That's the only way that it can be released out of the body, is as a water-soluble state. And so the liver does this in 3 stages. Let me show you. Phase 1. Phase 1 of the liver detox is where the liver takes this fat-soluble toxin. I've made a little symbol to make it a little easier, and it breaks it down to a metabolite. Metabolite simply means the first stage of metabolism or the first stage of breakdown. And this metabolite is more toxic than it originally was. It creates a lot of free radicals. This metabolite is highly volatile. And this metabolite creates a lot of free radicals, and free radicals are damaging to the tissues. And you might make the comment, what's the liver doing? It's just created something worse than it originally was. It's a process. It's like when we clean up the garage. Halfway through cleaning up the garage, it looks 100 times worse than when we started, because we're pulling everything out. Basically, that's what's happening. Now, within 36 hours of going on a fast, phase 2 kicks in. And in phase 2, the liver takes this highly toxic, highly volatile metabolite and joins it together with amino acids. The union of this highly toxic, highly volatile metabolite with the amino acids, it basically joins it together like this. It locks the highly volatile metabolite with amino acids. That creates the water-soluble state. And in a water-soluble state, it can be easily released out of the body. So the symbol for the water-soluble state is a wave in a box. Phase 3 happens in conjunction with phase 2. And phase 3 is where the liver takes this water-soluble state and basically releases it out via your sweat glands, releases it out via your urine, releases it out via your colon. You see, it is now a water-soluble state, and it can be easily released out. This is what science is showing now happens when people fast. Now, your liver has certain needs at these stages. So the needs that the liver has at stage 2 is antioxidants. You see, this metabolite is very toxic and has the ability to damage us. Well, that's what the free radicals do. Whereas the antioxidants, their nickname is free radical scavengers. They mop them all up. So the most potent antioxidants are beta-carotenes. This is why when you fast today, you must have juices. And the most potent beta-carotenes is found in your orange-coloured vegetables and your green-coloured vegetables. So at our health retreats, we give mostly carrot, celery and apple juices. That's 80% carrot, 10% celery, 10% apple. And our celery is dark green because it's come out of my garden. So that carrot, celery and apple juice, very high in beta-carotenes to mop up or to help mop up these nasty metabolites while the amino acids come in and join with them to make this safe water-soluble state. Another antioxidant is vitamin C. Vitamin C is not ascorbic acid. Ascorbic acid is only part of vitamin C. Ascorbic acid is like the envelope that's holding all the other nutrients that makes up vitamin C. Have you ever got an envelope in the mail and opened it and it's empty? That's ascorbic acid. So if you do buy a vitamin C, make sure it has ascorbic acid with bioflavonoids. The bioflavonoids come with the ascorbic acid to make the whole C. Another potent antioxidant is vitamin E. Vitamin E is a fat-soluble vitamin, so you'll find vitamin E in nuts, seeds, grains, legumes. What's also required at phase 2 is minerals. And minerals are found in that little bit of Celtic salt before every glass of water. Using organically grown fruits and vegetables for the juices is providing the minerals. Also vitamin B. Vitamin B is required. On our detox program, we always give our guests a vitamin B supplement 3 times a day. What we aim to do is nutritionally support every cell in the body. We aim to nutritionally support the liver to be able to effectively detoxify you, to be able to mop up these nasty metabolites and get them out of your body. Well, what's the needs in phase 3? Because amino acids are required. This is phase 1. Now we're looking at the needs of phase 2. So the needs of phase 2 are protein. Protein is required to supply the amino acids to mop up the nasty metabolites. So when we are running a detox program at our health retreats, we always serve a protein powder. Especially day 2, because notice what I said, within 36 hours, phase 2 is kicking in. So definitely by the second day, protein is needed. We use a pea protein, and it's a pre-digested protein, so it's very easily digested. In fact, probably again in about 10 minutes, the digestion of the protein drink has been done. What does phase 3 need? Phase 3 needs fats. What fats do is they keep the cell nice and supple and allow the process to happen. And so in our protein drinks, we give a little bit of coconut cream. We also put a bit of almond milk in. So the combination of almond milk, coconut cream and the protein powder, that makes up the protein powder that we give to cope with phase 2 of the liver detox. This information has only been known since 2002. But as you can see by my illustration this morning, it's important information. We are dealing with more fat-soluble toxins than any generation that's ever lived on planet Earth. The Bible talks about Jesus fasting for 40 days. It was actually a miracle because he didn't drink water for 40 days and we would not survive that. But all through history, there's stories of people fasting, sometimes for long periods of time, to be able to overcome certain illnesses. But in 2016, going into 2017, we need to be mindful of the 3 phases of the liver detox. So when you choose to fast, and fasting is an excellent way to give the stomach a rest, the gastrointestinal organs a rest, but it is also a God-designed way to free the system from built-up fat-soluble toxins that are coming into our body all through our life. But all the fasting experts agree today that you are far better to do 2 days of fasting a week or 2 days of fasting a fortnight rather than a long fast. Because if you do a long fast, too many fat-soluble toxins are released, and that will create too many metabolites, and it can make a person quite sick. You see, if all the environmental toxins were to come out of our body right now, we'd basically all be dead. Little by little, the body lets them go. Someone can get quite sick if they do a water fast, because if they do a water fast, there is nothing to mop up these toxic metabolites, and then there is nothing to join them together to create the water-soluble state that can be easily released out of the body. So only since 2002 has this information been known about the 3-phase of the liver detox. And as you can see, it is vital information, because if you do go on a fast to bring about healing in the body, it's very important that you nutritionally support your liver, that you nutritionally support every cell in your body so that you can effectively detox, because we don't want you to be sicker when you've finished than when you began. It also explains why some people get very sick on the detox. So this is one of the remarkable things that science is now showing us as to the reason why people are recovering from serious illnesses when they go through a fast. Because a fast could be called a detox, it could be called a cleanse, because as the fat stores get broken up, they are releasing the environmental poisons. And on the first lecture that I gave, where I talked about the true cause of disease and all the little microorganisms, do you remember a lot of those microorganisms, their role on planet Earth are the garbage collectors. So if we've got a lot of garbage in our body, a lot of environmental poisons, it can be a fruitful ground for them to grow. So fasting, if someone does fasting today, my suggestion is only go 2 days. In his book, Dr. Michael Mosley's book, The Fast Diet, he goes a little bit further. And there are quite a few scientists today are showing that fasting affects the brain. And what they are showing is that after not eating for, I think it's 24 hours, so not eating for 24 hours, the brain releases a protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And brain-derived neurotrophic factor is a protein that stimulates neurogenesis. So fasting not only helps to rid our fat stores of built-up environmental poisons, especially as you saw, if you nutritionally support the body, fasting also stimulates the release of the protein, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which stimulates neurogenesis. Do you know what neurogenesis means? New brain cells. Now, this discovery was made in 1998. Up until that time, it was understood that when the brain cells died, they were gone. And that is true. Once the brain cell dies, it's gone. It cannot regrow. But under the right conditions, brain-derived neurotrophic factor is released, which causes neurogenesis, new brain cells. Isn't that good news? God is so amazing what He has put into our body. And the more science goes deeper and deeper into the human body, the more it finds these most amazing things. God is so merciful that He gave us brain-derived neurotrophic factor that can stimulate neurogenesis. If you have a brain that's not working well because of things that have been done in times past, claim the promise of Ezekiel 36:36. You can claim the promise, but there are also some other things you've got to do. And my suggestion is try a fast 1 day or 2 days a week. It will stimulate brain-derived neurotrophic factor, causing new brain cells to be developed, no matter what the age. But there are some requirements. Let's have a look at the requirements for the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a fast. So this can be 1 day or 2 days, or it can be another type of fast that Ellen White defines in the Ministry of Healing, and that is having 2 meals a day. For myself, I have breakfast at 7 o'clock, like a king. I have lunch at usually about 1:30, like a queen. And often I do not eat again till breakfast the next day. That's an 18-hour fast. And that is such an easy fast because when we would be the most hungriest, we are asleep. And your stomach's very happy because it gets to sleep when you're sleeping. So the fast can be 1 day, or the fast can be 2 days, or the fast can be the 18-hour fast done every 24 hours. That's a very easy way to do it. And the only way you can go the distance is to have high fiber. And all your plants are high in fiber. Generous amounts of protein. I myself eat legumes every meal. For lunch, yesterday I think they were cannelloni beans, we had squash and carrots baked, we had a big salad, we had some dressings with that. Oh, and we had steamed broccoli. You see, that meal, everything had fibre, generous amounts of protein, and for dessert we had some walnuts. So legumes and nuts. Be careful not to overdo the nuts. And seeds, oh, that's what I also had, pumpkin seeds. And then healthy fats. What are your healthy fats? Your healthy fats are the fats that have not been altered. The most dangerous fats are the heating of the polyunsaturated fats, the margarines, they're the altered fats. We need to be having oil in its raw state. The only oil that can bear heat is coconut oil because it has no empty spots for the heat and the light to be attracted into. It's a saturated fat. So your healthy fats are your nuts and your seeds and your coconut and your olive. So that is how you can do the 18-hour fast. When you eat like that, it will go the distance. To trigger a release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, fast. Another thing that triggers this release is low carbohydrates. This is what the science is showing. Low carbs or low starches. Many Americans in Australia have cereal and toast for breakfast, sandwiches for lunch, pasta for tea. That's almost 100% carbohydrate. We've got to get the carbohydrates down. Now, all grains are high in protein, but they're very high in carb. Whereas your legumes, they are high in protein, but they are medium to low in carbohydrates. And your nuts and your seeds, they're very low in carbohydrates. So to get the carbohydrates down, greatly reduce the grains. That's the best way to get the carbohydrates down. What also causes a release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor is the high intensity interval training. This is running for your life for 30 seconds and having a rest for 2 or 3 minutes and doing that about 6 times. That huge blast of energy causes the blood to start moving very fast, going into all the little extremities, especially the brain. What also causes a release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor is full hydration. The brain cannot function if it's dehydrated. Our brain is a hydroelectric system, so no hydro, and that's water, no electricity. So full hydration, how does full hydration happen? At least 8 glasses of water throughout the day with that little bit of Celtic salt with every glass. And what that does, that Celtic salt with its 3 magnesium, it causes the water to be pulled inside the cell. What also causes a release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor is early nights. What totally blocks a release of the brain-derived neurotrophic factor is eyes. You see, your eyes are an extension of your brain, is eye exposure to technology. And do you remember those hours? That computer, that television has to be switched off before 9. But it's a documentary that you've been waiting to see for a while. Well, because of iView, because of recording, you don't have to watch it at that time. 9 p.m. and 2 a.m. So to cause a release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, make sure you're going to bed early. Number 6, sunshine. Your brain needs sunshine, and it gets sunshine through your eyes. So every day, ideally, it's a bit hard in Vancouver at the moment because we've got a lot of rain, but we did have a little bit of sunshine yesterday. As I do this list, have you noticed I'm actually going over the 8 laws of health? And that brings us to another one, and that is things that can inhibit the release is caffeine. The reason why sugar inhibits the release is because it overloads the brain with fuel, alcohol. Also drugs, and the drugs specifically that I'm referring to are the mind-altering drugs, whether they be legal or illegal, and tobacco. Tobacco robs the brain of oxygen. So for various reasons and in various ways, all of these substances inhibit the body's ability to release brain-derived neurotrophic factor. Notice in this cell, now this cell here is in every brain cell, these energy cycles. Notice how much energy we're getting with oxygen compared to a cell that doesn't get the oxygen, very little energy. And so that's where pure air comes into it. If a person's smoking cigarettes, they've got a huge reduction in oxygen going to the cell. And if a person is breathing in moldy air, chemical air, stale air, bad air, it inhibits the brain working properly because we're only getting this much energy instead of that much energy. Isn't it amazing how science is now showing that the 8 laws of health are stimulating a release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor. And when brain-derived neurotrophic factor is released, it causes the state of neurogenesis to happen. That means new brain cells. In Psalm 139, verse 14, the Bible says, I will praise thee, for I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Marvellous are thy works, and that my soul knoweth right well. So in looking at fasting, we're looking at the liver and how it's able to detoxify us from environmental poisons. We're looking at the release of brain-derived neurotrophic factor when we fast, which stimulates neurogenesis.